So, welcome, your hosts, Braden and Trey, to the No Name Podcast.
Yeah. So, we really didn't put together, with no guest on this first episode, we really didn't put together some sort of criteria for what we wanted to talk about. But I thought it would be a good idea because this podcast idea was something that originally came to you and you brought to me as an idea. Mm-hmm. So I want to hear from you on a little bit of that inspiration and where that came from, and also the 4 pillars that we talked about. I know it was a little bit different structure at first, but once we put our minds together, we kind of made it into this faith, fitness, finance, and framework. Framework meaning your mindset, right?
Yeah.
Faith, fitness, and finance, those are all self-explanatory. Mm-hmm. But started out as an idea with you, with this certain set of ideology, and then we put our minds together through coming to know one another, which we'll get into. So tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so originally I was thinking that we'd call this thing the Varsity team, and it made sense because both of us had grown up playing sports our whole life, and we're familiar with being on a JV team, being on a practice squad, being on the varsity team, and just the importance of getting upgraded to the bigger leagues because of your talent and because of just your excellence and getting put up there, if you're really a baller. And so the first, criteria or pillars that we had for the varsity team was all about, these different areas of life in which you can excel and you can kind of leave behind the average and just become a member of the varsity team of life. And that's kind of where it started. And then we were like, do we really want to make it the varsity team and have this like sports niche, or do we want to call it something else? So yeah, it's just been a refining since then, and here we are now.
It's awesome. Sounds like the idea itself was kind of a junior varsity thought. Maybe that got turned into. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But that's cool. So you take the varsity team and you kind of your sports background, you turn it into this analogy of the varsity team, the junior varsity team of life, and wanting to step up to the varsity team.
Yeah.
And what that takes and what specific areas. I know you had originally had a few areas. Do you remember any of those, or are we so far removed kind of from that idea that you can barely remember them? Because I know now we have our 4 pillars that originally started out with something else. But then we took what we're good at, the industries that we work in, and then also our combined faith. And we said, okay, let's turn this into something that we can both bring value to people through. So tell me a little bit about like what those first original pillars were, and to how that kind of transitioned into what we're working with now.
Honestly, I mean, it had everything to do with just mentality, spirituality, finances, and just mentality. Did I say that twice? Did I say mentality twice?
You sure did, but hey, first episode. Hey, this is our first go with this.
Oh, man. Yeah, but basically the same things, but not as cool as what we have now. Okay. Now it just makes more sense because it's so personal to our lives, to what we're doing now, and to what we've deemed as overarching pillars for everyone's life. And I feel like now it's not as personal to us, but it's more of an overarching thing for everyone.
That's awesome. And what area do you feel like is like the knowledge-wise? I'm not talking about we're both pretty strong in our faith, so take that one out. But I'm just going to go ahead and say it for you, actually. You're pretty well-versed in the area of fitness.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us about where that started, when you had realized you had a passion for fitness, and when you realized, because you've brought a lot of value to me in the area of fitness. We go to the gym regularly, and the accountability's there. My entire diet and nutrition has changed since I met you. So since we've become friends, that's changed for me, and it makes so much sense, and I've seen so many gains in that area of my life when it comes to health. Yeah, so I've seen all those, I've excelled in that area since. So you obviously have something of value to bring there. Where did that start, and kind of where does that passion for fitness come from?
Well, the passion for fitness started because I was so sick of just looking at an average person in the mirror who just did whatever felt good. And finally I reached a breaking point where I was like, okay, I need to hold myself to a higher standard. I need to stop just getting by and just take it to the next level and just have a discipline and a resilience and a consistency about myself to start scratching at the potential. And I don't think that I've gotten anywhere close. Neither of us have. But it's awesome that we're just getting after it. But fitness, it's always been a thing, just like it's been a thing for you with our sports backgrounds. But it's different whenever you have a coach yelling at you and making you do it versus whenever you remove yourself from that scene and now having that inner drive to go do it yourself. I feel like a lot of people in our shoes, as soon as they get removed from sports, they lose it all. And they're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this. I finally get to sleep in past my alarm, or I finally get to just, cheat on my meal, cheat on my, regimen. It's just like a lot of people lack the accountability to do it themselves if no one else is barking at you and doing it. And that was me for a long time. And I needed someone else to yell at me to do it. But then, again, you just get sick of being someone who can't stick to his own word and just feeling like a fraud. And so that's still a work in progress. That's not something that you get excellent at overnight. It's a perishable skill. Discipline is a perishable skill. And I have struggles, and that's why I'm so happy to have a brother like you to help me whenever I'm struggling. And I know it's the same way here. But yeah, man, it's a continued work, and it's really just come from not being any better or any different than anyone else.
That's good, bro. And I have the odds stacked against me. I'm working on a dad bod and a chiseled bod at the same time.
Yeah.
I've got a baby on the way. And so I've got those odds stacked against me, right?
No. Someone would say that.
But someone would say
not
that.
Us.
Not us. You're
Not
right.
Us. You know
You're
what?
Right.
I think that I kind of lean towards fitness as being more of my expertise, but let's talk about yours, man. You are a financial guru, and it seems like you have been from a very early age. I think that's really cool how early you started, and you should talk about when you started taking finances seriously and how that came about.
Yeah, absolutely. So guru, I don't know is the word, but trial and error professional. And so when I was young, I would say probably about 15, I decided that I wanted to get into real estate, which is what we both do now, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, that's kind of how we met. We can talk about that here in a minute, but real estate is what we do, transactional real estate. I do some investing, and you're on your way there. And so from an early age, I knew I wanted to do that. And so I started tapping into some resources that I had. And Ben Wilson, he was a mentor of mine at that early age that played a huge role in me pursuing real estate. And he was kind enough to let me job shadow him a few times. He taught me how to budget. And though I don't budget that exact same way now, when I met my wonderful wife, Abby, she had the same mind for wanting to learn to budget and be a good steward of our finances from the time I met her. And so pretty quickly when we got married, we decided, like, hey, we're never going to let our finances be a stumbling block in our marriage. Never. It's going to be an open door, communication, finances. You're going to see everything. I'm going to see everything. We're both going to be financially literate. And then if we can do that, then the enemy can't sneak into our marriage from any direction in the financial side of things. Not to say it's always been easy, but the fact that we knew where our money was going and what it was doing, and that we had an open communication line there was just no room for any stumbling in that area. And so what we did is, from what we learned, what I learned from Ben, and then, obviously you dive into Dave Ramsey a little bit, everyone does, and then a couple other methods. Her and I sat down and we figured out, okay, like what's going to work for us? and ultimately it wasn't anything that had really been created. It was kind of a mashup of each and every little thing. And I think it works really well, especially if you are a 1099 employee that doesn't necessarily have the same income every month. It works for both someone who does have the same income and also someone who's a 1099 employee.
Yeah.
One of the biggest questions as someone who doesn't get the same consistent income every single month is, how do I plan for a budget? What if I make $2,000 one month and then $8,000 another month? How do you plan for that? And so we started problem solving. It's probably not a new idea, but we simplified it, made some awesome templates, even started working on a course that maybe will be out there for anyone to partake in eventually. And I would personally love to, just as I know you want to with finance, I would personally love to start sharing that knowledge, that wealth of knowledge with people, no pun intended.
Yeah, that wealth.
Yeah.
Knowledge.
So sharing that with people and making that, something that people can tap into. And so it really kind of formulates around budgeting. I also had someone tell me one time, it's not necessarily about how much you make, it's about how much you spend. But I want to take that a step further, because also being the opposite of, like, a lot of people budget because they overspend, right? And then a lot of people also, I think, should budget when they are too tight with their money and don't allow themselves to spend. That's the side of it I came from. I was pretty tight with my money. I didn't want to, spend it ever. And so budgeting allowed me to break down that wall and start spending in a healthy manner. And so I say that to say, someone told me it's not about how much you make, it's about how much you spend. But to take that one step further, it's about how you spend it. So that's just a little snippet of financially what I feel like I can offer people, a really cool and simple budgeting method that's going to be easy if you're transitioning into a marriage, if you're single, any stage of life. It's easy to get started, and I can't wait to talk more about it as the episodes progress.
Yeah, you sure have helped me a lot with it, and I've kind of taste tested that prelim budgeting course that you put together. It's pretty good. I can't wait to see what it turns out to be. But let's not skip past the fact, 15 years old, budgeting, finance. Who does that? Trey Pruitt, but that's awesome.
Well, it's easy when you're getting a consistent allowance from your parents at the age of 15. But starting at 15, if you start at that age when you have one expense, maybe an allowance as an income, could you imagine I'm not even going to say could you imagine, because it's where the majority of people are, is if you start budgeting at the age of 30, when you're in the midst of your adult life and you have all the expenses, step one is now gathering and going through what are every expense, what is every subscription, how much is my income. But me starting at that age, I was able to say, okay, my income is $150, whatever, from my parents a month, whatever it might be, wherever you get that. If you have a job at age 15, you can go ahead and say, okay, my income is this is my only source of income. And then this is my one expense. And then as you start going throughout life and becoming an adult, you just add. Open up your spreadsheet and you just add the expense. Oh, I incurred a new expense today. My mom kicked me off the phone bill. Yeah. Boom. Add it. So you're never playing from behind. You're getting ahead.
Never playing pickup. Yeah. That's so good. Yeah. So for all the 15-year-old listeners, start now. Because I wish I would have. That's so cool though. That is awesome. The first week we met, you invited me to come into the office, learn from you, from the rest of the team. We now are on the same real estate team, but this was before I joined the team and got my license. I knew instantly within the first day or two that we were going to be really good friends. I remember one of the first things that after we broke past that professional barrier and you started showing me some stuff in your personal life, we were in your office and you were showing me your mock-up on a workout program that you could do anywhere at any given time with a Cinderblock. And I'll never forget that. And you had this detailed plan of all these Cinderblock workouts and how you could run and do these calisthenics and Cinderblock, and I'll never forget that. That's awesome. And I was like, man, this dude is my type of guy. I just know that we're going to start working out together. I know that we're going to just build off of one another, and look at us now.
I'm thankful that I met you then, because I guess I would just be lifting cinder blocks at this point. But we do go to the gym together, which is awesome. But yeah, my idea behind that, it's, it's like, okay, I'm looking at every area of my life, and how can I create simplicity, synergy, and like a world of chaos and busyness. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, and consistency.
Yeah.
It's like consistency will get you a long way. And we all know that. We've all heard that. But like, I was like, okay, where I'm not being consistent. And so I ultimately, looking back, it was very detailed and very like plan oriented, but I was also stuck in the planning phase.
Yeah.
I wasn't taking action. I was like, let me create something good on paper. Let me create something good on paper. And I was getting a dopamine release from just creating something on paper.
Yeah.
So like, you didn't see the 3 workout programs that I created before that ended for a week and then didn't do. But I was like, okay, so I'm going to create one where if I can get my hands on a cinder block or a rock, I could do it if I'm here. I could do it if I'm on vacation. I could do it if I'm in
that
prison.
Just eliminates all the excuses then.
Eliminates all the excuses, and I never got to do one workout, because then we started working out the next day, and I was like, this dude knows what he's talking about, so just tell me what to do, and I'm going to do it. And then,
that's
here we
awesome.
Are with that, so.
Now we train harder than ever at dark 30 in the morning.
Yeah, pretty early. Deny the flesh first thing in the morning. And going back to when we met through a mutual friend of ours, John Montgomery. Shout out to John.
Shout out to John.
One of the most disciplined humans I know.
Oh my gosh, me too.
And so he tells me, he says, hey, I know someone named Braden who you need to meet. Y'all are a lot alike. And I'm running this 5K. And he's like, Braden's running, or you were running the 5K too. He didn't tell me about that. And then when we all 3 showed up at the 5K, he introduced us. And you were like, oh, yeah, I'm looking to do, all this stuff. You're like, I'm looking to get into real estate. And, and we exchanged phone numbers. And I'm like, okay, we exchanged phone numbers, probably never hear from this guy again, And then before I could even get home from the 5K, you had like left me a text or a voice message or something or another that was like, dude, it was so good to meet you. I would love to, come hang out or whatever, like shadow you or like talk more about real estate. And I was like, okay, well, come into the office with me and shadow me, And then the next day or the next week, you show up at the office, and then there hasn't been a day since that you haven't been. You just started coming, and it was like a leech, and everyone on the team loved you, and you didn't even get hired. You kind of just showed up and
just
never stopped. You just never stopped coming.
Yeah.
And then now you transitioned into getting your real estate license, which that's what you do now. Yep. You're a realtor. Mm-hmm. And so that's such a cool story on how, like, okay, you had something to offer that I needed. And I was like, okay, I'm going to, latch on to this dude and like take everything that he has to say about fitness. And you, being interested in real estate, hop on the scene and say, okay, this dude has something that he has to offer that it could benefit me. And then all of a sudden we get a beautiful, wonderful friendship.
I know. An awesome symbiotic friendship.
Yeah. Now we're talking on the first episode of our podcast, probably talking over each other, probably hear the chairs creaking, all this like totally fine.
But we took execution. That's the thing. We didn't just talk about it and write it down on paper and get a dopamine release. We're here and we're doing it. And there's been a lot of blockades that have tried to come up in the way of us doing this, but we're here right now, whether it's pretty or not. We're doing it.
That's good. And I think the last thing before this episode's going to be shorter,
Mm-hmm.
This is just an intro to tell all of our listeners how we met, how, what we have to offer. You fitness, me finance, framework, which is mindset, is going to be, basically kind of running throughout all of them. But then also we put it all of that is under the overarching umbrella of faith, which we'll talk about in later podcasts, and we'll just leave it as simple as that right now. But that's one thing that has really brought us closer as brothers, is our faith. And so I don't want to overlook it in this intro, because we're going to get into that a lot more in future episodes, and it'll just be a theme that kind of weaves itself throughout every episode. So, that's all I have to say on that, but I'm grateful to be doing this podcast. I'm grateful for whoever's listening right now, and I hope that whoever is listening gets one little thing from this and takes it, and if you think someone else could benefit from it, share it with them. It helps us out. You never know when you're, gonna, by sending someone something that could touch them in a certain way, you never know the impact you can have on someone's life. So if you think that any of this content could benefit anyone, share it. Reach out to us. If you personally know us, reach out to us. If you don't, but you follow us on social media, reach out
anyway.
Yeah, reach out. If you if you need our email, it's probably somewhere. I don't know. Find it online, find it on a social media, or message us on social media and ask for our email. Like, social media will be probably the easiest place to reach us if you don't know us personally, and we hope to get to know our followers more personally. So
one last thing on my end. I think it's important to note that we're not just experts in these areas and we're preaching because we're experts, and that someone who's listening is like, oh, well, what do I do if I'm just starting from the ground up? No, we're all learning. We're all continuing to learn. You and I have had certain areas that we excel at more and that we can help in more, but in the areas of faith and the areas of framework, you and I have both had so much growth together, and we're constantly growing in each of the areas that we do kind of excel at ourselves. And that's what this whole thing is about. It's about self-improvement, it's about growth, and it's about encouraging others to do the same.
That's good stuff.
That's good.
If you had one quote to leave our followers with, putting you on the spot, bro, think about it real quick. If you had one quote to leave our followers with today, what would that be? Romans
10:13.
Okay, so biblical scripture.
It's
and you
biblical scripture.
Obviously came with this on your index card, so go ahead and pull it up here.
I did. I cheated. But if we're going to pull a quote, it should be from the best book around. Romans 10:13. For whoever calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved. You've got to know the name.
That's good, bro. I think on that note,